Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at store procedure. So in this series, we have begin introduction to MySQL, and we have learned basics of SQL from the very basic. So if you're any person who is interested in learning SQL, you want to work as a data analyst or you want to work as a data engineer, SQL is a very important skill to have. So in this series, we have covered the basics of SQL from the very basic beginning, from select statement and all the way to CTEs, functions, and variables and all of that. So in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and learn a store procedure. So what's a store procedure? We're going to cover all of that. How store procedures are important to you to know as a data analyst or basically as anyone who knows SQL. Okay, so let's begin. So let's look at what a stored procedure is. A stored procedure. Okay, so I made a type right here. Actually, it's a stored procedure and not a stored procedure. Okay, so it's a stored procedure. So sorry for that typo. So MySQL stored procedures are precompiled SQL statements stored in a database. They are subroutines containing a name and a parameter list and a SQL statement. That's basically what a stored procedure is. So it's just a compiled SQL query that is stored in a database that you can call on upon anytime you want to run the code under that specific store procedure. Okay, so don't worry about the definitions and all that. Okay, I just got the definition online just to give a brief introduction to what SQL stored procedure is for guys who like definitions. Okay, but the definition is really not important. If you understand stored procedures, you can always come up with your own definitions. Okay, so how to create a store procedure? So there are two main ways of creating a store procedure in MySQL. Okay, MySQL Workbench specifically. Number one is you can write it yourself from scratch. Number two is you can use MySQL Workbench to create it, which has a built-in functionality to make things much easier for you. And that's what we're going to be using in this tutorial because there is no point of memorizing code because code and syntax is always changing. So if you memorize it today, tomorrow, what you memorize might not work. So there's no point in memorizing stuff when coding. The main point is to understand stuff when coding. Okay, so I said mentioned earlier on store procedure taking the parameter list. So the parameter list can come in three different ways. It can be an out, or an in out. Okay, so don't worry, we'll look at all this and we'll come back to all of this just in a second. So when creating a store procedure, we also have naming convention for our store procedure. So when creating a store procedure, you mostly want to start with proc and then underscore and then name of the store procedure. This is not a must, but it's just a convention that you can follow. Okay, and these are other naming conventions like for other things like primary keys, event functions, unique indexes, check constraint, and stuff like that. Okay, so if you want to read more on the naming conventions, I can leave a link in the description. You can read more on the naming conventions that we use in MySQL. So now to look at sub procedures, I know it's not an in-depth explanation, but the best way to learn something is by just practicing it instead of just being presented with theory. So let's go ahead and let's create a simple stored procedure. Okay, so once I'm instead of my SQL workbench right here, and I have it opened up right here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab code from GitHub that we have used so far. If you haven't if you don't understand this code, let me know. I think you have used this code a couple of times already, so you should have familiarity. We should be familiar with this code. So this code just simply we calculate the gross profit, the COGS, and other stuff like that. You have used they have used this code in previous tutorials, I believe. And you have also look at what CTEs are, what a function is. You may have created this function from the last videos. This function right here, we are using it now right here to get the market value of a product and stuff like that. So this is just a simple code base, and I'm going to leave the link to this code base, to this query in the description of the video, so you guys can have access to this code. So I'm just going to go ahead and execute this code, and let's see what we get. So we get back this right here. So we get back this list right here. It shows us the product, the MSRP which I've discussed, the quantity sold, and all that, market value, the gross profit, the and the COGS, okay, cost of goods sold, and all of that. Okay, so that's what this query just simply returns to us. Okay, so now every time a person wants to access this query, we actually want to access this specific report of the profit, COGS, gross profit, and all this information. The individual has to actually run this query every time, like physically manually run the query. What if you had a store procedure that a user can just call, like the way we call functions in programming, and you just get back the report with specifying which date you want the report for and the product status? That would be much simpler, right? Instead of having to run this code every time. So imagine if you're working as a data analyst in a company, and the business manager wants this report. Manually, you have to go into your computer and run this code every time. What if you had a procedure and you can just instruct the business owner to call that procedure, and that procedure can retrieve information for that for the business manager instead of you having to do it all the time. That's much simpler, right? So a person can filter basing on the year, can filter basing on the month, and other stuff like that. Okay. So that's what they want us to do. We'll convert this into to make it more flexible, and then finally we'll convert it into a store procedure. Okay. So now we're going to leave everything as it is. Everything as it is. Okay. The only part we're going to go ahead and change is this part where we specify the date and the order status of the product, right? Okay, so let's get to it. So the first thing I want to do is a user can filter basing on the date and the month, right? So you can say, maybe you can say 2003, I want the reports for January, February, and March. Or 2003, I want the reports for March, and that should present you the report. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I want to do is start by here. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do in here is simply change this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and simply change this into a year instead of we just specify a year instead of this specific date. Okay, so we just go ahead and say year, and we convert the order date into a year, and we say the year should be equals to a year, right? Let's say, like example, 2003. So now let's run the query. Now we should get back only reports for 2003. If you look here, we have reports for yeah, we have report mostly for 2003. Okay, now let's say that you want report for all the time, all just 2000 and let's say 2004. Okay, just to make a difference. Well, let's select all this, and then we run the query again. Okay, so once we get that query, it's going to take a bit of time because it looks like we have quite a number of reports. Okay, so right here, you can see now we have only of 2004. Okay, so it's going to have everything from 2004. Just 2004 is going to go ahead and filter everything from 2004. 2004. It's not going to consider the month. It's just going to filter everything that was every product that was ordered in 2004. Okay, so that's how you can filter basing on the date. You just convert the order date into the date, and then you say that the date should be equals to a specific value, right? So good. Now, what if the user wants to filter on a month as well? Because right now we're getting all the reports back, okay, from 2004, from January to December. Let's say the user wants to get only for a specific year, sorry, for a specific month, right? So how do we do that? So we can use the month function to do that. Okay, so you can just go ahead and say end, end. You can say months, right? These are the inbuilt functions, and I've looked at functions in the other videos. Okay, so the month is going to be, we're going to take this from here, the code from here, and you're going to go ahead and simply pull out the month information. Okay, so you're going to say where the month is going to be. Let's say first, which is going to be January. So if the month is one is for January, 2 is for February, 3 is for March, and all of that, and then 12 is for December. Okay, so now I'm going to pull from 2004 on January. So if I run the query now, it should return to me only reports from 2004 January. So the query should be much faster because I'm only filtering for January and not every other month. Yeah, so that's basically it. You can get that report right there. Okay, good. And one thing you can notice about this report is that we have things that are being redundant. Like you can see, this is redundant, and all that. So there are ways we can solve this, but for now, let's not worry about that. We'll come back to this just in a second. Okay, so we have that information right there. Okay, so one way you can solve this is actually just group by the product. You can group by the product code, and then you find the sum of it. So group by the product code and the date, and then you can find the sum of it of that specific product. Okay, so that's basically it. But this one I'm just showing for each individual product, so it's fine as well. So it's not wrong. Okay. Okay, now a user can now filter on the date, on the year, and now the month. Okay, now what if the user wants, like, I want the reports of January, February, and March, 3 months, right? So how do we do that in here? So to filter for 3 months, what we have to do, we have to use an inbuilt SQL function. So this function is called find insert. Okay, so find insert. So let me just demonstrate to you how this function works. So just say find underscore in underscore set, and this function takes in, we're going to go ahead and say month right here, and you're going to go ahead and say to, let's specify the given date, 2003, and then we're going to go ahead and say 8, and then you're going to say 20th. Okay. Okay, so once we have that, you're going to go ahead and close that off. It's going to return to us the month, and you're going to check if that month is within this list right here. So 5, 6, 5, 4, 1, 5, 6. These are just months. So we're going to check if the month you're going to get from this output is going to be within this value right here. So this is going to be a set, and it's going to find the output of this code inside of this set. So make sure that you don't put any spaces, right? So don't do this. This will not work. So make sure you just say 1, no 5, 6, no spaces. Okay. So once we have this, let me just select this and run it, and let's see what we get. So it returned to us 0 because the month here is 8 and 8 doesn't exist within this set. So this is not 8, this is not 8, this is not 8 either. So let's change 6 to 8 and let's see what we get back. So select that and we run it again. So we get back 3. This is in position 3, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3. This is position 3. If I go ahead and change this to be 8 again, let's see what we get back. So select this, run it. It is in position 2 because we found it first in position 2, right? So that's basically how this function works. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use this to filter information. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to go ahead and simply apply this function right here inside of our query. So instead of having just a single month, we're going to have multiple. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do, and let me just comment this out for now. Comment this. Let me just leave this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and simply comment given code block right here. So I'm going to say end find underscore in underscore set, and I'm going to go ahead and simply pass in the same month of the order or the dot order date, right? You can get the month. I'm going to check if the month is within 1 comma let's say 8 comma 6. Okay, good. And you're going to go ahead and simply check if it is more than 0 because it's only present if it's more than 0. And you notice it's right here, right? It's only present if it's more than 0. So if I'm going to say more than 0. So good. So that's basically what we want to do. So once we have that, let's go ahead and run the query again. So we're going to go ahead and so we're going to go ahead and select for this from the 5th month. Let's go second month and then a third month. So January, February, and March. Cool. Let's run that. Let's go ahead and run this query and let's see what we get back. So we get back information right here, and you can see we have the information from different months. So let me just scroll down here. You can see this is for January. If I scroll, you can see also have February right there, and if I scroll we should also have March right there. So you can see January, February, and March have been included. That's all the only months that have been included. No other months has been included, right? So January, February, and March. So as the user can specify to filter data from multiple dates in multiple months instead of just a single month, right? So that's everything works fine, right? So now we have the user can filter based on the year, the month, or the months, and then finally the order status. So we have everything and it's good. So now we don't want to be running this code all the time. If a user wants a report, maybe you can create a store procedure and give the users access to that store procedure, that they can just call the store procedure and be able to access the data. So imagine if you're working as a data analyst and then you create this store procedure. You don't have to constantly run this query in your Python code or to from anywhere to pull this information. You can just call the store procedure, pass in the year that you want the information from, the month or the months, and then the order status, and then it's going to return to you that information. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's what store procedures are for. So I have this. You can see this field right here for store procedures. Just right click and just say create stored procedure. So once you have that clicked, now we're going to go ahead and call our store. We're going to give a name to our store procedure. So back to the slide, let me just go here. So you can see the naming convention for store procedure. You can say proc. It's not a must, but you can have that. Okay, so just go ahead and simply say change this to be proc, and then the name of the store procedure. We're going to call it profit report. Report. Okay, let's say profit underscore report, just like that. So once we have that generated, good. So let's go ahead and simply go in here and copy all this code right here, all this code that we have, the CTEs and everything. So from line 1 until the very end, copy it and just simply paste it in here, and let's fix that indentation. Okay, so indent this to make our code look good. Okay, good. So this is our store procedure right here. Now a user needs to be, this values needs to be dynamic because the user can filter on the dates that the user wants, right? Not the way that not the ones that we specified statically here. So now we need to take in a couple of parameters from the user, so that the user can tell us from which date he wants the data from and which month or months he wants the data from. Okay, so let's go back the slide and let me just go back in here. So parameter list modes. So it's when specifying a parameter, you can just go ahead and specify the name of the parameter and then the data type of the parameter. So you can go and say year, and I'm going to say it's going to be of type year, just like that, and that's going to work. And then we're going to have month, right? Let's say month, like month or months. Okay, months, and this is going to be varchar. You're going to make it a character. It's going to be a character of, let's say 100. Let's say 100 characters. I don't know. You can use any character you want. So 100 characters, and let's say order let's say order underscore delivery underscore status, and this order delivery status is going to be of type varchar, a var character, variable length character, let's say maximum of 20, right? So it can be either shipped in process or something. So let's just make it 50, or let's just keep it 100. Okay, so good. So those are the information that we want. So now let's go back in here. So going back in here, you can see the different parameter modes. So the parameter modes are important things to keep. So if you use the in, it's going to be used with input parameter. It's going to be used as an input parameter. So this in the year is going to be an input parameter from the user. So you can just say in. Let us say that. Okay, so in a good convention in MySQL, you just have to also set the variable name with in. So if you are looking through your code and you see in, you know that is an input parameter. Or say, okay, so let's do the same for this other one. So we're going to say in, and it's going to be in underscore month. Okay, months, and then it's going to be in, and then in underscore months, just like that. So that's all we want to do. So once I have this information right here, I can just go ahead and copy this and replace these ones right here. So the year the year will be what the user specified. The months will be the ones that the user specified. So you're going to go in here, you're going to go ahead and delete all of this and then put in the month that you want. And then finally the delivery status, and you're going to go ahead and change this to be the delivery status right here. So you can see this very in the code you see in, that's an input parameter. So if you want to create an output one, you just use out. Let me just go ahead and demonstrate this to you. So I'm just going to go in here and just say let's say out, and I say out underscore return, just like that. So that's an example, right? So that's going to be an output parameter. Then you also have in and output parameter. Combination of both in and out can be used for input and also used for output, right? So you don't want to waste memory creating another variable in memory, so you can use in out. Okay, so that's basically it. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear this up, so we have everything set up there and we are ready to go. So good. So that's all we need for our store procedure. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on apply. So you can see apply button right here. Click on that, and then simply go ahead and say apply. Okay, so if you have no errors in our SQL statement, it should be okay, and you just close that. So now if you go in under store procedures, you expand this, you can see you have these store procedures right here. So let's go ahead and call this store procedure. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply click on this like a thunder button and next to it, and you're going to go ahead and call it. So let's say we want to report 2003, and the months, let's say I want just January, and then the order is going sorry for that, the order status is going to be shipped. And once I have that, I'm going to click on execute, and it's going to go ahead and generate for me the report. So you can see it's much easier. So if you need to give this to a business person who doesn't know anything about SQL, they can just call that store procedure and generate a statement, right? So that's way better. Or even if you're writing your own you're doing the own data analysis in Python, you can simply call this store procedure to return you information instead of having to write this whole query set every time. That's like ridiculous, right? So having this store procedure, you just go ahead and simply call the store procedure. It's just one line of code and pass in the parameters you want, and it's going to go ahead and retrieve this parameter. So let's say that we want close this up. Let's say that we want to run this again. Let's say you want report from 2004. The months that you want, 1, 2, 3, like January, February, March, and the status is going to be shipped. Okay, and then simply execute that. So it's going to return to us a report for that. So you can see we have reports for January, February, March. If you scroll up, you can see all that January, February, March, and then 2004, and then the status is going to be shipped. So the status is going to be shipped. So good. So that's basically how you can create a store procedure and use a store procedure in MySQL. Okay, so I hope that was, you guys don't have any questions. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, so let's look at the benefit of stored procedures. Number one is for security. So let's say that I'm having a database and I'm giving you access to the database, right? So I don't want you to run any query that you want, okay? So I can just give you access to the procedures that I have defined. So you can only call the procedures that I have defined, that I know what those procedures do. So you cannot do anything apart from calling those procedures that I carefully define myself. So it gives my database security and limited capability to users, right? Okay, so maintainability. Modular code helps, hence easy to update, easy to maintain, right? It's easier to maintain a store procedure than having to maintain a huge query and having to run this query every time. That's really can be unmaintainable. So imagine I have to go in every time, find a query that I want to query, that a set of query that I want to run. Queries can be many lines long, so I have to find the query that I want to run and then execute the query. That can be tedious at times and unmaintainable. So having a store procedure, just call the store procedure, pass in the parameters you want, get the result back. Much simpler. And also, store procedures are much faster because they are compiled code, right? So they are compiled, so they're much faster, and they're also convenient to use. Like for example, you can just click on a button and simply get the report that you want. That's really convenient. So you just go ahead and click a button right here, pass in the information you want, okay, and just say it's 2005 and month one and shipped. So it's very convenient to use. You just press a simple button and you have the report that you want. It's really simple and easy to use instead of uh running manual running like queries. So if you also to be running a query, I have to come in here, update this manually, and then simply run the query again. But the stop procedure, I just have to click on a single button, pass in the information that I want, and then boom, I have the information that I want, so the report that I want. So it's much efficient. So yeah, that's all for store procedures in this video. Okay, so that's all I want to discover about store procedures. We'll be using store procedures and we'll come across them many times. So this is just a quick brief introduction. Once we go into other parts, we'll look at views in the next tutorial, and then we'll look at how to start writing different queries, like doing different projects, analyzing data with in Python. So we'll come across store procedures more and more. This is just a quick brief introduction. So if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If you want to get access to the code that I used, this code I have written this code couple of times already. So but if you still want the code, I'm going to leave access to the code in the link. Is going to be in the description of the video. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to your YouTube channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.